fantastic. This is GT racing right now.
He's got traction, he's got everything outside of both of them. Maloney!
Oh, he's taking Anderson. Anderson's up top.
Oh my God! Big crash! Oh my goodness, half the field's gonna get rolled.
Second very close. These guys are going to want to make their way through the field very quickly.
Oh, there we go.
Oh no! That's massive! This is it! This is over! I can't believe this! Oh my God!
God, what?
This is the original esport racing game. This is iRacing.
Once again, it's that time of the week where iRating and safety rating is put on the line as drivers attempt to wrestle arguably the hardest car in the iRacing service around what tonight will be Circuit de Barcelona, Catalonia. It is, of course, the iRacing official Supercar series live on the iRacing Esports Network and presented by SimSpeed TV. My name's Ryan Jones. Alongside me tonight and directing this race for us will be Jay Kennedy. And Jay, so far this season, in these strength of field races, it's all been about one man, Forzan Al-Nabi. We've seldom seen him outside the top two in any of these SOF races. He's been challenged by a number of drivers, most notably, I've pointed out a number of times in previous broadcasts, James Scott, but no one is able to beat him consistently. Do you see that turning tonight, or is he going to see more of the Forzan fun up front?
Well, hello everyone. Yeah, there is a potential for a bit of a shake-up because James Scott and Cooper Webster both doing a very, very good job at the front of the field at the moment in qualifying. We saw on Friday night in AOSC action that the Evolution Racing Team cars look really, really quick. There's also a few drivers out for a bit of redemption as well. So it could be a bit of a mixed-up field because that big, long run into Turn 1 really does line up the opportunity for drivers to get a little ambitious and sometimes can overextend their capabilities into Turn 1. So we'll see how it plays out. But the ERT guys possibly are the ones to beat tonight, not necessarily Forzan Al-Nabi as he has been throughout the season so far.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. We were deliberating before the broadcast started how long that run to Turn 1 actually was. A couple of different sources, but I think we landed on a figure of somewhere around 700 meters from the first grid slot down to Turn 1. So that launch off the line is absolutely crucial because if you get away poorly, you're going to find yourself getting swamped by cars behind very quickly. At the moment, in terms of qualifying, we have got James Scott on provisional pole position. Scott was someone who was absent from the last round of this series, and as a result, we saw Forzan sort of jump away with the win for that one. But before that, it was Scott challenging on Nabi. So Scott's returned with some great form. He performed well on AOSC as well on Friday night. Team manager Brenton O'Brien talking to us in that race, telling us about how much he admired how James Scott had progressed over the last couple of months. Really, been a fast progression for him, and it's been good to see. And there's a lot of other drivers in this field who could certainly get up there and challenge. Cooper Webster, he's currently splitting Scott and El Nabi. He's there in second place. Sean Thompson is up there in fourth, and Jamie Johnstone fifth.
I'll say that's a great job from Sean Thompson. P4, that is absolutely punching above his weight. We saw him do a great job on Friday night in AOSC, but to be P4, that is a huge effort from him. So well done to Sean. Damien Johnson as well, P5. When you look at the guys that are behind him, the likes of Matt Morris, Brett Cananzi, Corey Preston, and Ross Rizzo, all behind those two guys, those two of Thompson and Johnston. Fingers crossed for them, they can get a great launch off the line and maybe stay in those top 5 spots because that would be a great effort if they can.
Yeah, it certainly would be. But if Friday night was anything to go by, that was the first time we'd seen supercars on the Barcelona circuit There was a lot of action and a lot of chaos throughout that race. So if that's anything to go by, we can't really expect or predict what's going to happen today. We've got what we expect to be around 48 to 50 minutes of racing today. A full 100% tank for these guys, so no pit stops required. What that does mean is we'll have 25 laps, and this track is pretty harsh on those tyres as well. You're going to have to look after the tyre wear through turn 2, turn 3, and that high speed corners as well. Going to really put to test how good some of these drivers are conserving those tyres and making it to the end. But I think that is everyone across the line, and as the time elapses, that is the grid set for tonight's race. So we'll run through the results, and here's how they look for tonight's race. James Scott, he's on pole position by about a tenth of a second to Cooper Webster, who will start outside row 1. Forza El Nabi from 3rd. Sean Thompson joins him on row number 2. Damian Johnstone and Ross Rizzo share the 3rd row of the grid ahead of Corey Preston and Brett Cananzi.
Yep, and then after those guys, we've got Christian Smart and Craig Jones with Matt Morris and Steve Jansen next. Braden Nash and Rob Harris. Scott Gamble and Ashley Ruskin round out row number 8.
17th and 18th will be Stephen Kokoschki and Vincent Skelbeck. Joshua Pickett and Jamie Stavold rounding out the top 20. 21st, 22nd, Greg Sharp and Simon Vella, Wayne Burke, and Nicholas Dole rounding out this field. Most of the field still waiting to grid up. We just got over a minute left maximum before they get underway. For the drivers off this front row, going to be crucial. I've talked about that run to turn 1. If they bog down, the draft is going to come into effect as well. Luckily, the Supercar's not the most aerodynamic beast on this service, but the draft is important nonetheless, and we've seen a number of races. It has changed the race, how that draft has played out for drivers. It allows moves to happen that drivers in front sometimes don't expect and causes some calamity as well. And down into turn 1, those guys from the last couple of rows of the grid are going to be arriving at significantly more speed than, say, James Scott, Webster, or Forza El Navi. So going to be a big Costantino down into the first chicane at turn 1 and 2, the right and left. Then through turn 3, they will be struggling for traction on cold tyres, trying to get that power down as quickly as they can. You've got just a few seconds left. The revs are rising. The green flag flies, and away we go here at Barcelona. It's a good start for James Scott and 2 for Cooper Webster. And look behind as El Nabi tries to cover off Sean Thompson, who now looks to go to the outside as they all fan out and try and look for a bit of track space further down the field. Around the outside, trying Cooper Webster up front. That was James Scott and Webster side by side. And Webster goes through into the lead of the race. Scott, and now behind El Nabi, gets a bit sideways. Saves it, but he's going to lose a handful of spots now. He's side by side with one of the XG Motorsport cars. That's Corey Preston. And now he's caught 3 wide as Christian Smart poked the nose up the inside of turn 4. And El Nabi's still making contact, and this has been a horrible start for the number 1 car in this race. As he slides again into turn 5 and gets collected by Damian Johnstone.
Oh,
now
no.
Morris, and a big crash coming out of turn number 5. Multiple cars go around. And that is Forza El Nabi. So almost last in this race. Who was the other car involved? That was Craig Jones. Let's get a replay for that one.
It was actually, we're going to stay live for a second because it looks like Rob Harris was involved in that too. So a fair bit going on. And I must say, great start from Sean Thompson because he's ended up in P3. He just held the outsider and forced El Nabi into that mistake. So we get the Modem Simulation replay. Thanks again to Modem Simulation for their continued support here of us here at SimSpeed. As up the inside, big slide, and Morris tried to avoid him, but he'd already made contact, and then Craig Jones involved and Rob Harris as well as he's come back on the track. Oh, there's been contact with the 22 car there. That's Josh Pickett making contact. As, they were 3 wide, 3 into 2 didn't go, and unfortunate for Rob Harris to get caught out there. As that we come back live. It's still going on back in the field, but I must say, great job from Ross Rizzo and Sean Thompson to get out of that mess. They've broken away from Damian Johnson. Corey Preston with a great start, plus 3 spots. Wayne Burke, though, remember where we said he started? He was last, didn't put in a qual lap, 23rd position. He's just got himself into 9th at the end of lap 1.
That is a stunning effort from him. It just goes to show, keep your nose clean and you will reap the rewards. Weinberg up 13 spots in just 4.65 kilometers of racing. So, the gap at the front now is 6/10 of a second. We saw that move in turn 1 that I almost missed as Webster got by James Scott. But Scott looks to already on this lap be closing back up behind him. The gap does look a bit shorter than 6/10 of a second now. Sean Thompson's going with him too, but we'll see how well Thompson can perform today. We said he qualified very well for what we've normally come to expect from the driver of the number 7 car. So how's his race going to go? Is he going to exceed expectations as well? I'm sure he's going to be hoping to capitalize on this opportunity. Most of the field pretty much single file themselves out, getting themselves stuck into this race. There's a move a little bit further back. That is our Forza Nabi. Simon Vella up in front of him. Nabi looking to make his progress back through the field into turn 10 on the brakes on the inside of Vella, who gives him a wide berth there. And through goes El Nabi. I think Vella knows Forzan has an absolute bucket load more pace than he does right now.
Wayne Burke also getting another spot too, so he's now up into position number 8. Another spot is Christian Smart losing another spot here. Side by side with Scott Gamble. A little bit of contact there. Gamble gets through around the outside. Braden Nash will also get the spot. And Jamie Stovall not too far away from getting a spot too. So a horrible lap there for Christian Smart. It's a interesting little lap there for Smart. He's lost so many spots as James Scott actually looking to make the move back on Cooper Webster at the front of the field. And he's got through. So change of position back at the front. James Scott, who was in the lead at the start, is taking the lead back from Cooper Webster.
Came from a long way back as well. That was a huge dive down to the inside. There's a replay there. And that seemed very easy for James Scott to change position between the two Evolution Racing team teammates. But what that has done, it slowed both of them up just a bit. Closed up Sean Thompson to the back of both of them. Ross Rizzo, haven't seen him too much in the Monday Night Supercar series. But he's in here tonight, and he is looking to play a bit of a wildcard hand into this race, up there in 4th place. Certainly in with a shout of playing Joker, some of these regulars.
I'm wondering if that's a strategy call there for Cooper Webster. Let James Scott through. We know he's contending for the championship. Forzan Nabi having an absolutely horrible night. So he is way back in the field. That's going to be a bad points haul for him. James Scott can capitalise on that, get a big chunk of points tonight, and that will then mean that points gap between those two drivers will nullify and almost be nothing coming into the 8th round next week. So I think that's a little bit of a strategy call there. Cooper Webster check up the field behind a little bit, let James Scott clear a bit of a gap, and then Cooper Webster can race the field behind.
You might be right there, and nothing to note with these championships, the way they work with the official iRacing championships. They do get 4 drop rounds out of the 12-week season, which means that to Forzan's advantage, he very well could end up dropping this particular round out of the final equation. But
Just
do
going to
this
cut you
too
off.
often.
Just going to cut you off for a second there. Just listening on board there from Cooper Webster. Could be completely different altogether. I think he's underfueled the car, miscalculated the fuel because he was fuel saving hugely into turn 1. So I think that might be the issue there for Cooper Webster, and nothing else but around strategy. He's just underfilled the car and he's saving as much fuel as he can to make sure he doesn't have to pit.
Well, that's unfortunate for Webster because, of course, no fuel restriction for this race, as I mentioned before we got underway. I guess he's probably loaded up the wrong setup, maybe not realised it's a full tank, but whatever's got on there, going to have his work cut out to save however much fuel he needs. Obviously, it's enough to warrant saving by quite a substantial margin into turn 1. It is a good battle, though, for 10th place. Braden Nash, Scott Gamble, Christian Smart, all Linus Stern heading up towards turn 9. And Jamie Savold, in fact, just in behind them too. So 4 cars are Smart. He went in super deep to turn 9, almost went straight into the back of Scott Gamble. I thought for sure going to be contact there, but not that time around at least, as again, Smart is incredibly late on the brakes, and it seems like he's got a lot more confidence in these guys around him in the braking zone. He's able to drive that car much, much deeper into these corners.
It's a real interesting little battle, isn't it? Because all four of these guys in this fight all look like they're stronger and weaker in different spots, so it's leaving them susceptible to that next group of cars behind closing in. They had a little bit of a margin back to the likes of Ashley Ruskin and Greg Sharp. Those guys have closed in fairly quickly, so we could see a few more cars in this battle as Braden Nash now looking strong through that last couple of corners. It's broken a little bit of a margin, but I wouldn't be surprised to see that gap close back in.
Yeah, neither would I. It's going to be one to watch for sure. Into turn 1 and 2. No moves this time by, but Christian Smart. You can see how much he's closing up onto the back of Scott Gamble. If he can get the power down early enough through turn 3 and get a bit of a run going, he may be close enough to have a lunge at turn 4. Gamble just fighting the rear of that car just a bit, trying to get that traction down. Managed to keep enough of a gap this time by, but again, you can see Smart looks to have the pace over these guys, and I dare say it won't be too long before a move is made here and elevating himself up into P11. Towards the front of this race, still a great battle happening for second place. Cooper Webster lapping almost a full second off the pace of James Scott out front, and absolutely holding up Sean Thompson and Ross Rizzo. And joining this battle pretty soon, I think, will be Corey Preston. He's back in 5th place, and almost missed that. Sean Thompson looked to have a go up the inside, almost had his nose chopped by Cooper Webster. That was very close to contact, and I think Thompson is probably going to be getting a little bit impatient behind Webster, especially if he knows he's driving a lot slower than he potentially could be right now if he is fuel saving. So he needs to get this move done.
On that fuel saving thing, I've just been fed a little bit of information, so thank you to the guys feeding that the fuel limit is not 100% as we originally were advised. So 89.6 litres is the maximum, so you have to fuel save around about 8 or so litres of fuel throughout the race, which is around about 4 hundredths of a mil, 400 mils even, a lap. Which you can see Cooper Webster's doing quite aggressively, so he's going to save as much as he can to start with and then push on hard at the end. James Scott potentially is going to just run it and come in and splash in some fuel at the end, so he's trying to break out a bit of a margin there, which is out to now 3.5 seconds. Sean Thompson's sort of in the middle by the looks of things.
Yeah, I'm going to blame you for that one, Jay, because you put up the 100%.
100%, I'll take it. I'll take it. So. I was fed the wrong information earlier in the week, so I'll blame someone else as well.
Alright, we'll keep passing down the chain of command there.
I'll take the blame.
That's all right. That one. Thanks for filling us in on that one. So, yeah, this will be interesting to see how this plays out, because it really appears that James Scott is not saving at all. Opting to build the gap, then save. Webster's gone complete opposite. And Sean Thompson and Ross Rizzo, now to contrary my point I was making, maybe they don't want to get past Webster, because being sucked up in his draft means they're going to be able to save a bit of fuel down this back straight they just went through, and down the main straight as well. So, being behind Webster could actually be playing into their advantage right now.
100%. I think they'll almost be ruining the fact that James Scott isn't saving as well, because that double draft does help a lot. So having those extra drivers ahead is a little bit of a mistake there for Sean Thompson. Now he's got Ross Rizzo closing right in on his tail, but the more cars you've got ahead, the easier it is to draft. It does make it a little bit anticlimactic seeing all the guys nose to tail, but it does open up a huge, interesting strategy at the end of the race, and who's going to be able to push on earlier, who's going to have to save a little bit extra at the end of the race. It's going to be a really interesting race. I love these sort of races where you've got that extra strategy to play out. So I've seen a couple of drivers actually have DNF this race as well. Brett Cananzi is out. Rob Harris did pit after that incident earlier on to get a huge amount of damage, nearly a minute of damage fix. So he's gone a lap down, but means he's fueled up to the end as well.
Certainly does, so we'll see whether that can be an advantage from at any point in this one. Another possible option for these drivers is to just go all guns blazing for as long as they possibly can, and then dive down and take a quick splash of fuel. Only issue with that strategy is the time you lose in pit lane. Quite a long pit lane here at Barcelona, so you'd have to open up pretty much like almost a 20-second lead, and in about 40 minutes of racing, I don't quite think that's possible. Further back, Forza Al Nabi, we just saw him going up the inside. There's also a good battle for 6th place too, Wayne Burke, who continues to charge up the field. He's just gotten by, actually, Damien Johnstone to put himself up into 6th. From last place on the grid, fantastic drive for him. continuing to march forward. Joshua Pickett and Greg Sharp, they're 16th and 17th. And they both... Greg Sharp's actually lost 2 spots on this lap. So, not been a great lap for him. Something's going on in this midfield because Joshua Pickett's come up 1. Forza now, Nabi's making a move as well on Ashley Ruskin as we look back towards... There we go, you can see it from that camera shot. That's a great shot there. You can see almost half the track from this point of view. That's El Nabi now in front of Ashley Ruskin, who's going to have to fend off Joshua Pickett. In behind him, Greg Sharp, who will be looking to make up for some lost ground. Oh, Ruskin, very wide through the chicane. Look at this train, though. Down this main straight, Corey Preston... Let's close the final corner. Corey Preston looking to the inside of Ross Rizzo. Oh, he lost the rears. Great job to keep it off the inside of Ross Rizzo's car, but that was almost disastrous for both those drivers. Great job, great car control from Preston to gather that one back up and not lose too much time, to be perfectly honest with you. He's only lost about 4 or 5 car lengths to Rizzo and all that, but won't be helping his tyre wear, I can tell you that much.
Definitely not the fast way to do it is to overheat the tyres, especially in a fuel-saving race where you could tell on board there he was definitely fuel-saving. So not the best method. Also noticing that he hasn't registered an official lap time, so he's getting an incident on every lap. So he needs to be careful. Of course, 17 incidents per race. At best, he's currently on 7, so he could be on even more than that. Needs to be a little bit careful, calm it down a little bit, get himself back in a rhythm, does Corey Preston, or else he could find himself with an early exit from this one. Good little battle here. This is 9th and 10th, Kokoschki and Nash. I say Braden Nash has looked really good over the last few weeks. He's come from nowhere. Now all of a sudden fighting for top 10s is a really, really good result.
Yeah, he's done a great job, and now he's going to go to the inside of Kokoschki down into that turn 10. That tight, almost a hairpin left-hander. In the end, a very easy move there for Braden Nash. Elevates himself up inside the top 10. And he's come up 4 spots. 4 spots. It's up into 9th place, up 4 spots. Kokoschki himself's up 6 as well, so he's had a great race too. Look at this train in behind them though, just off the back of these guys. It's Christian Smart and Scott Gamble. And Jamie Stavold. I dare say they'll be joined pretty quickly by Forza and El Nabi, who's back there in 14th place, a few car lengths off Stavold. Down this main straight. Any fuel-saving games being played by these guys. I'd say El Nabi's got an interesting race from here on out because he's going to have to make up a lot of lost time. But he's going to have to do it by saving the fuel that...
He's got a real tough call to make, doesn't he? Does he save fuel and make sure he can get it home, not have to stop, or does he just go all guns blazing, pass as many cars as he can? It's going to be interesting. Now, James Scott as well. He's got it out to a 5.4 second lead. We need to see him get it out to around about 14, maybe 15 seconds. So at the moment, probably not enough of a margin. As you can see, there's Cooper Webster. But fairly short actual pit lane here too. So the pit lane for a Formula 1 track, it's a lot smaller than you would expect. So probably plays into his advantage a little bit more. As we go back to this battle between Smart and Gamble, these two are going at it quite hard. But as you said, they've got to watch out because Forzen is coming even though he is fuel saving aggressively. So this is going to be an interesting little fight over the next lap or two.
Certainly will be. What's El Nabi doing lap time wise? That's an issue for Vincent Gelbeck, I do believe. Let's get a replay out from Motor Simulation. What's unfolded for Gelbeck, who now sits 20th in this race, into turn 7. Through there nicely. He's gone through turn 8 pretty nicely. Oh, he's just clipped that little yellow curve on the inside and hard into that inside wall. He just got a slide going and never was able to recover it. And that was a very long crash for him right there. Expecting to save it and just couldn't head on with it. So unfortunate there for Skullbeck. That'll be big damage to that car. I'll be shocked if he hasn't got a meatball from that one. So he's going to have to come down to pit lane, I dare say. Christian Smart was closing in on Scott Gamble and then very suddenly stopped. So he's fuel saving in that draft at the moment. Christian Smart using his... I'm not...
Yeah, using his smarts. You can do it. You can do it.
I didn't want to. Forza Al Navi 49.679, 4 tenths quicker than Jamie Stavold, 7 tenths over Gamble, 8 tenths over Chris Gamble, actually, 7 tenths. So a lot of pace in hand. That was one I was going to make before we saw Skillbeck slow on the racetrack. So we'll come through these guys. I wonder whether he'll use these guys to save a bit of fuel in their draft and then slice through them with relative ease you'd expect of the man leading this championship right now. Meanwhile, the gap up front is just continuing to open up at extraordinary rates. It's up to 5.7 seconds now. James Scott to Cooper Webster in identical team cars. 6.3 seconds now. On this lap even, it's opened up by 6 tenths of a second. On lap 10 of the race, lap 11 when he crosses the line. So he's going up about half a second minimum a lap fast on the Cooper Webster. And when you're in the same team, that's a huge margin because there's nothing in setup there you'd expect.
Yeah, it's purely based on that strategy, isn't it?
Yeah.
So, yeah, Webster definitely fuel saving. James Scott, we'll jump on board for a second here. Let's see if there's any fuel saving. Absolutely zero fuel saving. He's pushing at 110% at the moment. So James Scott absolutely flying. No surprises that he's done the fastest lap of the race. He's done it by an absolute mile as well, a 47.9. Next fastest lap in the race is Ross Rizzo with a 48.5, which is the exact time that James Scott just did then on lap 10. So it's an incredible pace. Oh, Wayne Perk, yes, you're right. I didn't see Wayne Perk there, 48.4. So, yeah, he's very quick as well. But, yeah, Ross Rizzo, 48.8 as his fastest lap. And James Scott did a 48.8 on that lap there. So he's absolutely flying. Only 6 tenths of a second faster than Cooper Webster on that lap. But his pace looks very, very strong at the moment. Jamie Stovall's looking very, very quick. And here he goes. No, that's Forza Al Nabi looking up the inside. So Stovall was very, very close to the back. Christian Smart to look and make a move. As Al Nabi just come through and dived down the inside and took the spot away.
Good move there, Forza Al Nabi. The splash and dash strategy, if they took new tyres as well, the actual tyre drop-off, we're both having a look at previous races this week, and we came to the same conclusion that it was about 1.5 to 2 seconds, depending on the cloud cover over the track over the course of the run. So that 2 second a lap difference could make a huge factor in this race, as well as Christian Smart's going to go by Kokoschki, who had a poor run out of turn 9. And Smart's going to run a little bit wide though, but he'll keep the spot because Kokoschki was very narrow, and now holding up Al Nabi. He's trying to go to the inside, makes contact with Kokoschki. Snap of oversteer the other way, holds onto it, keeps himself from spinning or going into a wall, but that was not the cleanest pass you'll see Forza Al Nabi make today. Here's a replay from the chopper cam. You can see how this gap almost appears to open itself up and then very quickly shuts right there. You think there's a moment to get up the inside, and that one shut very quickly. Slight misjudgment there from Al Nabi, and Kokoschki goes back 2 spots from that one, and now Forzan is all over the back of Christian Smart as Sean Thompson is in pit lane and taking a pit stop stationary for 10.6 seconds, which is just about long enough to take your tyres, isn't it, Jay?
Yeah, it should be long enough to get a set of tyres as well. So he's decided that fuel saving's not for him. He wants to go out there on out-and-out pace and try and get up a few more spots. So he's dropped from 3rd back to 18th at the moment. But there's going to be a lot of vulnerable guys, especially if you've got new tyres as well, coming up in that later stage of the race. So it could be a good play if he didn't think the fuel saving was going to work. Yeah, I'm surprised to see that he's done that from such a high position. I would have thought maybe Corey Preston or Wayne Burke, one of those guys, a little bit further back in that top group, might have been the one to do it, but not Sean. But he obviously knows best, and he wouldn't be the sort of guy to want to just easily throw away a podium spot, his debut podium in this series in the Monday night main event. So he obviously has thought about it over the last 12 laps or so, decided he can't save enough. He's jumped in the lane as Al Nabi goes and makes another spot in that new Ascend Esports car, and that is past Christian Smart, so back into the top 10.
Ascend Esports dissolved from the Zero Esports team. So that's where that one's popped up, in case anyone would miss that news. Over the last week, a 48.795 for James Scott that time, half second quicker than Cooper Webster. The previous lap, it was a full second difference, so continuing to storm away up front. Cooper, was that Corey Preston? Yeah, Preston now into pit lane as well. We'll see what his stationary time is down in pit road. Will it be longer or shorter than Sean Thompson? As I just try to find Corey Preston. Actually, look at him. 10 seconds, 10.8 seconds. So pretty much identical to Sean Thompson, who is making his way down the main straight. Where will Preston emerge relative to him? It's going to be pretty tight, but Sean Thompson's going to be ahead of him, and comfortably ahead almost, as Preston straight across turn 1 into the gravel, contact with Ruskin's front right as well, and he's horribly misjudged the braking point coming out of pit lane for turn 1. Wasn't quite sure how to describe that one at the time. Here's the onboard from Ruskin. There goes Thompson through, and oi! There goes Corey Preston, appearing from nowhere. I dare say he probably has triple screens or VR, because it looked like he saw him coming and very wisely sidestepped that 1.5 ton of a supercar.
I'm actually wondering there if Preston's misjudged the fact that he's got cold tyres on and just went to try and get that position as quick as he could. Forgot that he had fresh tyres on, he outbroke himself. So very, very high possibility that's how it's played out. The gap at the front now, 8.3 seconds. So James Scott is starting to pull a bit of a gap. But total time lost looks like it's around about 21 to 22 seconds. Sorry, 26 seconds by the looks of it, looking at the timing. So he needs to get a fairly decent gap. And at the moment, it looks like Cooper Webster's in the pole position to take the spot, or take the win at this stage. But of course, could mean that he's got to save even more fuel come the end of the race. Ross Rizzo, we know, is a master of fuel saving, so he's in a good position here. As Braden Nash decides he's had enough coming in. Also Scott Gamble in, so there's a few more drivers deciding fuel saving is not for them. They're coming into the pits to get some fuel and going at it again. It's going to be real interesting when those guys close up onto the back of this field, as Sean Thompson now closing in on Craig Jones. New tyres versus old tyres. Fuel saving versus not fuel saving. It adds a really interesting element throughout this next phase of the race.
Certainly does. Caught us both off guard. Weren't expecting a strategy race today. Thought this was going to be a straight sprint fight, but I like me a bit of strategy, and this one's shaping up pretty nicely. A good split throughout this field between one stop and no stop, it seems like. But yeah, Cooper Webster's looking to be in a pretty strong position. It's going to come down to, though, that tyre wear at the end of the race. The difference between what we assume is going to be fresh tyres for James Scott and going hard at it, and then Cooper Webster still trying to save fuel and on the older tyres too. So the closing distance will be pretty big. As you can see, is the case with Sean Thompson and Craig Jones. On this chopper cam, you can see the closing distance through the corners. As Sean Thompson almost lost it through turn 8. Closes up onto the back through turn 9. Good exit here. Should be close enough, but Craig Jones is driving that car pretty well at the moment, just to keep himself ahead of Thompson, who's too far back for turn 10. Craig Jones was too deep for turn 10. Couldn't keep that car straight. The rears made that car want to go around on itself, and he goes straight ahead. Thompson goes straight through into 15th place. And he's the first of the guys that have made pit stops. Only 2 of the guys in the running, of course, Braden Nash as well. I should mention, I forgot him. Braden Nash, Rob Harris as well, who's a long way back on this race. And Vincent Skulbeck is still in pit lane after that damage we saw for him earlier on. Wayne Burke is up into 4th place from 23rd on the grid. Astonishing drive continues. He's now looking to make it up 20 spots with Ross Rizzo now in front of him. And he's quicker than Ross Rizzo by a significant margin, 4/10 quicker last time by. So has Wayne Burke decided it's time to quit fuel saving, or has he saved enough for now that he can start trying to push, maybe try to get into that draft and save a bit more that way? But this is a good race. I'm not much of a strategy expert myself, Jay. So it makes it that whole lot more exciting, because I have no clue what any of these guys are actually doing.
Yeah, so Thompson's gap to the lead is staying pretty stable, around about 38 seconds, but the gap that he's getting to Cooper Webster is gaining around about, well, actually last lap he matched him for pace, but he's gaining on Ross Rizzo. Of course, he's battling through traffic, so Sean Thompson's probably hurt himself quite a lot, but saying that it's better to fight your way back through the field than to run out of fuel with a lap or two to go. Christian Smart sticking with El Nabi too, which is interesting. As James Scott, finally, here we go. He's in.
Alright, this is it. This is the stop that's going to determine how this race is going to play out. Cooper Webster will go by and take the lead of the race as Scott pulls down into his pit bay. Up on the jacks, get those tyres changed. Get some fuel in that car and get ready for a hard charge to the end. Lap 16 to 25. Stationary for 9.4 seconds, so a second quicker than what we've seen from guys who've already made their pit stops. And he's come out into a whole lot of clean air. Next car behind him on track is Forza Al Nabi. Scott's coming through turn 1. I just lost him there on my screen. It looked like he was almost going to lose it on the rears. And he's got a lot of clean air, so he's not going to be held up for quite some time. He's going to be able to push hard. Next car in front of him is a lap down, Rob Harris. So this is fantastic track position for James Scott. He can use these fresh tyres and go as hard as he can without being held up by anyone.
The interesting thing too is he's actually 11 seconds ahead of Sean Thompson. So that earlier stop for Thompson has really hurt him. He was around about 8 to 9 seconds back when he stopped. So he's actually lost ground even though he's on fresh tyres and had that advantage over James Scott. But James Scott now, so that's 6... I'm just trying to count 11 seconds he's got to the lead. 10.7 seconds to the lead of the race, Cooper Webster. He could probably do that with 10 laps to go. If he's got fresh tyres, 10 laps on these tyres, he could do it if he pushes at 100%.
A second a lap, and he was at times a second a lap quicker before he pitted too. So the only issue he's going to have in terms of trying to get into the lead of the race is in front of him he has, obviously that lap guy Rob Harris, but he's also got Damian Johnstone, Wayne Burke and Ross Rizzo, who are very close together, and then Cooper Webster. So he's got 3 cars to pass for position before he can think about that lead. So that's going to be the biggest issue for him. Advantage is, of course, those fresh tyres. What about Wayne Burke? Can he move up to second place in this race with a look to the inside for turn 1? Ross Rizzo saving fuel, lifts off the gas early, and Burke goes through on the inside. Pretty easy move for him. Different stages of their fuel conservation, it seems like. Burke's ready to push on a bit harder than Ross Rizzo is at the moment. Rizzo, bit of a reputation for being incredibly good with his fuel numbers too, so I wouldn't put it past Rizzo to be spot on with his numbers.
Yeah, that's what concerns me about Wayne Burke's pace at the moment, is we know how good Rizzo is on fuel saving. It was, what, an extra 70 or 80 metres earlier out of the throttle than Wayne Burke there in the heaviest fuel saving zone, the heaviest braking zone, of course. So does that mean that Burke is not saving enough fuel, or is he undersold himself for fuel numbers? I'm not sure, but I'm looking forward to finding out in 8.5 laps. Rizzo, we know, is an absolute gun in these fuel saving events, whether it's in a V8, whether it's in a GTE, whether he was in a remote control car, you could probably still work out how, wheelbarrow, he could save the fuel to make sure he could make it home. So, so Rizzo now, the fact that he got passed by Burke and was out of it so early really, really concerns me that Wayne Burke is not saving enough fuel. But then again, he's also had the draft from a lot of the field throughout as he's made his way past everyone. So, he may have saved enough, but I'm thinking he might be a little bit short, and there we go, right on cue. How's that for a prediction?
That answers the question. And I remember mentioning that I haven't seen Rizzo in this series too often on Monday nights. Well, I wondered at the time why he decided tonight was the night to jump in. I guess we know now. It's a fuel saving race,
yep.
And that's exactly why. So that's 1 car less that James Scott has to pass.
Oh, wow. Look at the pace. Fastest lap of the race, that lap there for James Scott, a 47.3. Cooper Webster's done a 49.3. 2-second advantage in the favour of James Scott. And I miscounted when I was reading the times. It's 13 seconds. It was 15.7 when he come out of the pits. It's now 13.8, 13.6. So here's closing and closing quickly. Wayne Burke out of the pits. Yeah, he's going to get there very quickly. Wayne Burke out of the pits right behind Josh Pickett too.
Yeah, well, at 2 seconds a lap, even at 13-second lead, you'd still expect him to close up. The only issue he's going to have is right now he's in a bit of a Goldilocks zone with these tyres. They've got maximum grip. He's not going to have this amount of grip. for the last 7 or 8 laps of the race. They're going to drop off a bit. What he's going to hope for is that Cooper Webster's tyres drop off equally and maybe even go off a bit of a cliff towards the end of the run too. So certainly a huge chance for James Scott. His first challenge though is to get by Damian Johnstone without losing any time. And look at how much extra grip was that. Easy as it could possibly be, Johnstone rolled over and let him go. Not his fight. He knows that. James Scott, you could already see through turn 9. He was already going to have enough of a run to pass him, but Johnstone made that as easy as he possibly could. So up into 3rd place in the race. He's got just Ross Rizzo between him and the race leader, his teammate, Cooper Webster. Webster, again, is not a driver we've seen too often in this series on a Monday night either. So we've got 2 guys who aren't regulars up here preventing our main championship rival for Forza on Arby from leading this race. So that's quite an interesting story there too. Further back, look at this, 9th and 10th side by side into the chicane. That doesn't always work. And they're still going to be side by side, and they are going to make contact. And around they go. Sikorsky gets another hit from Wayne Burke. And that's unfortunate for Wayne Burke, who went all the way back there with his pit stop. Put himself in traffic, contrary to James Scott. Is behind him too. There was almost contact with Greg Sharp and Craig Jones. So, unfortunate incident there. I said 2 into 1 at that corner does not always work, and that's an instance of it there. It really doesn't work that often. Here's another simulation replay. A lot of the curve being used by Burke, and then into the penultimate corner. It's just hard to tell, really. Maybe it's a bit of a racing incident on that one. And then the second piece of contact that removed his hood. Just unfortunate. Nowhere for Kokoschki to go. Into the corner, you can see Kokoschki's still got a car there. It looks like he's made contact though behind that B pillar and going off that B pillar rule. You would suggest maybe he should have backed out of it, but what do you think, Jay?
Yeah, as I keep saying, I said it the other night in our TCR broadcast, that they're the sort of incidents that you don't want to be sitting in race control for. So I'll sit in the comms box and just sit on the fence and get splinters rather than make a call on that. But yeah, you're right. The B-pillar rule would mean that Kokoschki was at the wrong. But then again, Burke probably didn't quite need to chop the nose off quite as aggressive as he did, considering he knew that he was there. As that you can see in the background, Sean Thompson through on Jamie Stovall. So Thompson's back into 7th. And James Scott now 11 seconds back. 6 laps to go. Or it'll be 5 laps to go when they cross the line. Sorry, 6 laps to go when they cross the line. This margin is closing at a rapid rate. 1.5 seconds last lap, 1.5 seconds again. It is now 11 seconds flat.
Turn 3 for Cooper Webster. He's got a lap car in front of him. That won't be an issue. 49.2 for Cooper Webster. 49.6 for Ross Rizzo. 47.7 for James Scott. That's the pace he has. He's going to clean up Ross Rizzo very quickly. He's only, 5 seconds behind Rizzo, so that's not going to be an issue. Cooper Webster, this is going to be a really, really close finish between these two, because the way I see it, this gap's going to come down to 0 on the final lap.
Yeah, I think that too. I think it's going to be about half a lap to go once James Scott gets there. And at that point there, is there enough left in the tank for Cooper Webster to push on for that half a lap? Or does he still need to save fuel? If he can push on, he might be able to hold on. If he still has to save fuel on that final lap, it's probably all over. Oh, how aggressive there was James Scott coming through turn 7. He's looking very, very strong though. He's very, very committed, maintaining a very, very clean line. Hasn't really put a foot wrong too much in this race. He's looked very, very smooth and consistent throughout this one. I must say the track conditions are surprising. He's just seeing just quicker slowdown. So he was a bit too aggressive through that curb, and that has hurt him. He's lost around about half a second from that though. So he's still going to be pretty quick on this lap.
Yeah, he will be. We'll get a exact lap time when he crosses the line. Going for those final 2 sectors now, and what's it going to be? Cooper Webster's just come across the line on a 49.3. So he's not getting any faster. Ross Rizzo's not getting any faster. James Scott. Yeah, so he's on a 48.2 that time, but that'll be as a result of that slowdown. Still a second quicker though, so no dramas there. Still on track. Oh, he's not quite on track. He needs to gain by almost about a second half. Almost 2 seconds of lap now he needs to gain to get there, because 5 laps to go. He's got 10-second margin between him and the lead of the race. At the moment, I'd say advantage is definitely in Cooper Webster's court because, oh, look at this. Back here for 6th place, Christian Smart. Sean Thompson trying to make it up into 6 after his pit stop. Trying to go by Smart, who hasn't pitted. Should be pretty easy. Through turn 3, he goes up the inside. Move done. 6th place for Sean Thompson. Up in front of him is Forza Nabi, who hasn't pitted and is much slower as a result of that. So Thompson could still be on here. Should be on for a top 5 result. There's yeah, I'd say right now I'd probably favour Webster for this one because that gap just looks like it might be a bit too much. But one mistake from Webster and it's game on again.
Yeah, 100%. Or the fact that has he saved enough fuel and is he going to be right there with, you know, the couple of 100 mils that you need to get it over the line. If he, if he's a couple of millilitres short and it coughs into the final corner, that could be enough for James Scott to take the race away. So at the moment, not enough. This lap, he's only gained a second on this part of the lap. Got to gain half a second in this last sector. It's going to be tough. Interesting too, Sean Thompson, as you said, he's probably looking like a good top 5 here. He should be able to pass Foz El Nabi into turn 1. But there's a huge gap to Damian Johnson. So if he's saved enough fuel, thumbs up. Well done, Damian Johnson. Currently in 4th. He should hold on to that 4th position too. That's a phenomenal result from him if he can do it. So fingers crossed for him he does. And I hope I haven't put the commentator's curse on. But he's looking very, very strong at the moment. And only a second taken out between Webster and Scott on that last lap.
Yeah, not enough at the moment for James Scott. Enough, you would suspect, for 2nd place, though, which is nothing to be disappointed by a podium result. Here we go, move up the inside. Sean Thompson, job done. No fight there. El Nabi, not so much let him go, but his fuel conservation meant that...
Didn't have a choice.
Yeah, no choice for him, lifting off so much earlier than Sean Thompson before he was even on the break. So he moves up into the top 5 spot now. And that is... What did we have in the end? 7 people made pit stops. James Scott's the highest. Sean Thompson is up under 5th. I think Ashley Ruskin might have just had an issue. Braden Nash, Scott Gamble, and Steve Yampton also made pit stops. They're back in 14th, 15th, and 16th place. So it seems like the fuel conservation strategy has been the way to go. Of course, you can't make that a statement until they do cross the line because you never know. They might not have saved enough. They might be using too much fuel.
It's always a tough call to make when you're on these line ball decisions too. Do you run it lean and hope that you've got enough and don't run into issues where you have to use a little bit of extra fuel? I'll tell you what will actually help Cooper Webster here is the sun coming back out because that means that although the fuel burn is less, it means that the tyres will have to work harder for these guys ahead. So sun being out for these last couple of laps should play in the favour just purely on the tyre game for James Scott over Cooper Webster and Ross Rizzo, and this should be a move into turn 1. But yeah, too far back you'd think now with 3 laps to go. 8 seconds. Needs a miracle to win this race from here, but you never know. Stranger things have happened in these events.
Only 4 tenths quicker than him last time by as well, so Cooper Webster actually found about half a second in terms of his own lap time there, which is helping matters greatly. So maybe he's now finally able to breathe a bit with fuel numbers too, and that's why he's found half a second there. Ross Rizzo is still lapping at 50.3, so a second and a half slower than Webster, 2 seconds slower than James Scott. Rizzo is still fuel saving like an absolute madman that he is right now. As down into turn 1, that's Steve Jansen up the inside of Steven Kokoschki for 13th place. One of the drivers that I said had made a pit stop finds another spot, and he is right in behind Greg Sharp, who hasn't pitted and is going to be under immense pressure to keep this spot. Not going to be able to do it because up the inside at turn 4, a pinch to the front right tyre, but still able to pull up nice and easy left. Steve Jansen, 2 spots in 3 corners for him there. Won't be too displeased about that one, and finds himself pretty much right where he started this race. Started from 12th, still in 12th. Battle for 6th though. Christian Smart and Forza Nabi, neither of these guys have pitted, but Smart has the pace over El Nabi at the same time too. You would suspect that Nabi is probably struggling a little bit more at the end of this race in terms of fuel compared to Smart because of the fight back he's had to put on to get back through this field. would have had to drive the car just a bit harder to get through the dozen or so cars behind them, which probably plays into Spart's favour here. He's probably going to have a bit more fuel up his sleeve as his late braking antics almost caused another collision there. But he's I'm impressed by how late Smart is going in on the brakes here. He's driving it in deep to these corners.
The other thing too with El Nabi is the damage that he's got on his car too probably isn't helping either, especially with the tyre wear and the pace of the car. Corey Preston as well got a little bit of damage. Got Wayne Burke behind who also got damage. Both of those guys have pitted. Jamie Stovall doing a great job to hold on the spot. Again, turn one's not going to be able to hold. Oh, a little bit of contact between Preston and Stovall, and Preston gets through once again. Here comes Burke looking around the outside through turn 3. Won't be able to do it, but Stovall's defended really well, but Christian Smart also has done a great job in this race. But the tyre life, I think, at the end of the race might be a little bit tougher for El Nabi. If he can hold on, that'd be good for him. But Christian Smart could steal that place away just on tyre life over El Nabi in the last couple of corners here. It's going to be an interesting fight to the end.
Yeah, something will be just a lap to go when they cross the line. Out front, the gap is still way too big, still over 8 seconds between the leaders of the race. The closest battle is this battle between El Nabi and Christian Smart, but El Nabi's actually pulled out on this lap. He's opening up the gap now. It's out to about 5 or 6 car lengths. It was a car length or 2 when we first picked it up, so El Nabi now is starting to put the pressure back on Christian Smart to find some more time. Behind them is another good battle here, 8th, 9th and 10th. Corey Preston, Wayne Burke, it's Jamie Stavold. Stavold's lost 2 spots on this lap. Not been a good one for him. Wayne Burke and Corey Preston both moved up a spot as a result of that. As Cooper Webster, he has started the final lap. He's making his way through. Turn number 3 is Corey Preston and Wayne Burke so close to touching there into that final chicane. James Scott, 8.4 behind him.
Lost ground on that last lap. 2 seconds,
ground,
yeah,
indeed.
2/10 slower. So Cooper Webster has this well and truly in the bag at the moment. But Wayne Burke might get this spot here and get himself up into 8th, which would be an incredible drive from last to 4th, back to almost last, back up to 9th for now. This is going to be a very, very intense battle on this last lap. Can Corey Preston hold on? Wayne Burke's car looks a little bit better in regards to the way it's set up, but I think the damage is hurting. Corey Preston's a little bit loose, and Burke probably just doesn't have the front end grip after that damage to the front of the car.
No, that damage is probably playing a big part in this one for Wayne Burke, who, you got to tip your hat off to him, has driven a fantastic race. Can't criticise him for this one. 23rd up to 9th.
Oh, Kokoshi's out of fuel.
Kokoschki is the first driver out of fuel. Factor in the fact he made a pit stop, went all the way back to the rear of the field as well, and has still found his way up inside the top 10. Fantastic for him, but even more fantastic for Cooper Webster. He's going to come through the final chicane, barring a cough and a spotter from the fuel tank. It doesn't look like that's going to happen. Fantastic strategy, great fuel conservation, kept his nose clean from the outside of the front row. Across the line for Cooper Webster. He wins here in Barcelona for Evolution Racing Team. James Scott will come home in 2nd place, first of the drivers to make a pit stop. Eventually, he was 8.7 seconds adrift. Ross Rizzo shows up for a fuel conservation race and takes home a podium spot in 3rd. John Stone, great drive, 5th to 4th for him, up 1 spot. Another driver who played that fuel conservation game perfectly. Sean Thompson rounding out that top 5, and El Nabi does hold off. Christian Smart.
Does he?
Oh, that was close. I think El Nabi just held on. He coughed right across the line.
3,000.
Final corner.
Oh,
and it looked
Preston.
close as well between Preston and Wayne Burke. And, yeah, wow. Couple of cars really tight on fuel at the end here. Let's get that replay up. Side by side through the final corner, Wayne Burke and Corey Preston. Who got it?
Oh,
Preston, it looked like, by an absolute bumper. And that's it. Great finish there from El Nabi and Smart, Preston and Burke. And that is our race done for tonight. Let's go through the results as the last few cars trundle across the line. Jay, take us through the top 8 drivers here today.
Yeah, so we've got Cooper Webster and James Scott at the front of the field. Started 1 and 2 in opposite order, but James got great drive to come back through. Just didn't quite have enough tyre life left in the end. A great fuel-saving job from Cooper Webster to hold on. Ross Rizzo, the fuel master, finishes in 3rd position. Damien Johnson, my man of the match for this race. Fantastic job from him to finish 4th. Qualified in 5th and finished 4th. That's a fantastic drive in both qualifying and the race. As we've got Sean Thompson next in 5th. He'll be over the moon with the top 5. 6th position to Forzen Al Nabi. Christian Smart in 7th. Corey Preston rounds out the top 8.
Just behind them, Wayne Burke. He's probably my driver of the day, despite that incident. He drove a phenomenal race. Jamie Stavold as well came up 10 spots, so he drove a fantastic one as well, running out that top 10. Craig Jones dropped a spot in this race, finished 11th. Had a Stevie Anson and Greg Sharp in 13th. Braden Nash finished in 14th, who is continuing to improve in this supercar. Scott Gamble and Ashley Ruskin running out that top 16.
And then the last page, we've got Joshua Pickett and Matt Morris, the last 2 cars on the lead lap. Kokoschki finished a lap down in the end, running out of fuel. Simon Valla also 1 lap down, with Rob Harris also a lap down after the issues earlier on in the race. Vincent Skilbeck did get back out on track, but finishes 7 laps down in the end with Nicholas Dole and Brett Cananzi, the rest of our drivers that took part tonight. What a race we've had. I must say, Catalunya might become a staple in this car. It's another one of these Formula 1 tracks that really does provide some great racing in these cars.
Yeah, it certainly does, and we've seen some great racing, and we've seen some overtaking too, which is the most important thing with any racetrack. You've got to be able to overtake, and we've seen not only tonight, but a couple of nights ago as well, that it's certainly possible, and some great strategy games being played today. That does us for tonight, though. We look forward to the next few nights for SimSpeed TV, and we've got a big one coming up tomorrow. For the first time ever, Just Send It will be live on motorsport.com and motorsport.tv, as well as all the normal channels from SimSpeed TV on YouTube, Facebook, and on twitch.tv. Make sure you tune in for that one. Going to be a huge night for SimSpeed TV, for Just Send It, for iRacing in general. Then on Thursday night, some more strength field action with the IMSA Michelin Pilot Challenge on all the SimSpeed channels. We go back to the iRacing Esports Network on the weekend, the final round of the major series on Saturday evening, and then on Sunday night, the big one. V8 Scops is back in action at Silverstone. Tune in for that one. Don't miss it. Make sure you drop a like, subscribe if you haven't already. And from myself and Jay Kennedy, it's been a pleasure calling this race for you. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll catch you next time.
This is fantastic. This is GT racing right now.
He's got traction, he's got rid of the outside of both of them! Maloney!
Oh, he's taking Anderson. Anderson's up top.
Oh my god! Oh! Big crash! Oh my goodness, half the field's gonna get rolled!
Second very close. These guys are going to want to make their way through the field very quickly. Oh, here we go. Oh, no. That's massive. This is it. This is over. I can't believe this. Oh, my God.
God, what?